Nicolas Cage never did anything by halves. From jaw-dropping performances to jaw-dropping architecture, his life was always larger than the screen. But behind that trademark intensity lies a story of staggering excess and financial ruin. Today we reveal new details showing how Cage went from owning multiple mansions, rare artifacts, and a collection of exotic cars, to facing bankruptcy at the age of 61. You've seen him wrestle supernatural forces in classic horror flicks and chase treasure through ancient temples, but you never imagined this real-life drama. A star whose fortunes plummeted faster than any box office bomb. It begins in the early 2000s, when Cage was riding a seven-figure salary wave. Blockbusters like National Treasure and Gone in 60 Seconds vaulted him to A-list status, commanding up to $20 million per picture. At the time, he already owned 5 estates, including a 40-acre plantation in Louisiana, a Gothic castle in Germany, and a private island off the Bahamas. He collected comic books that cost more than most houses, paid millions for a dinosaur skull, and dropped hundreds of thousands on Michael Jackson memorabilia. Cage's lifestyle looked like a cross between a Hollywood legend and a Bond villain's lair. But extravagance came with a price. By 2007, the IRS filed a lien for $6.3 million in back taxes, citing unreported income and late payment penalties. Court documents obtained exclusively by our sources show that amount ballooned to over $14 million with interest and fees. They reveal hidden accounts in the Cayman Islands and offshore trusts set up to shield earnings, schemes that ultimately failed to protect him from creditors. Despite repeated payment plans, the taxman's patience wore thin, triggering foreclosures on his New Orleans mansion and a Malibu beach house that once hosted A-list guests. Simultaneously, a string of high-profile lawsuits compounded his woes. A bank sued him over a $2 million mortgage default, leading to the auction of a private jet valued at $2.5 million. Another lawsuit accused him of failing to make alimony payments to a former spouse, culminating in court orders to seize royalty checks until the debt was satisfied. Even his production company faced legal action from investors alleging fraud and mismanagement. Each headline peeled away another layer of the Cage mystique, replacing cinematic heroism with a portrait of vulnerability few expected. By 2011, Cage's film roles shifted from tentpole hits to low-budget thrillers and direct-to-video projects, some grossing just enough to cover production costs. IMDb lists over 100 performances in a decade, but collectively they never recaptured his peak earnings. His paychecks dwindled from 7 figures to 5, and his once robust bank accounts withered under mounting obligations. A forensic audit of his finances, filed in a recent court exhibit, shows debts surpassing $35 million, including pending judgments, tax liens, and secured loans. Yet the most shocking revelation is how close Cage came to losing everything. Mansion foreclosures were halted by emergency refinancing secured at punishing interest rates. Creditors accepted partial debt repayments in exchange for dropping foreclosure proceedings, agreements that stripped Nicholas of most direct property holdings. Insider interviews indicate that counselors warned he might soon have to file for Chapter 11 protection. Bankruptcy would allow him to reorganize debts, but at the cost of public records detailing every asset and every unpaid bill. Despite this looming threat, Cage fought back by leveraging the very thing that made him a star: his talent. Sources close to his agents confirm that he agreed to roles without upfront pay, accepting back-end points and volume discounts to satisfy creditors. He appeared in ensemble casts, cameo roles, and international productions, racking up dozens of credits to generate residuals. In interviews, he framed this period as a creative renaissance, calling himself an actor's actor rediscovering the craft. But behind the rhetoric lay a financial imperative. Each paycheck went directly to satisfy IRS levies or to settle outstanding judgments. Through it all, Cage kept collecting artifacts, though now on much tighter budgets. Auction records show he sold pieces from his former hoard. A Tyrannosaurus skull fetched $1.1 million at Christie's, while his comic book collection brought in $1.6 million across multiple sales. Those emergency liquidations eased pressure temporarily, but created a painful irony. The same treasures that once symbolized success now funded Cage's fight to stay afloat. In the next section, We'll dig deeper into dramatic IRS filings just released, reveal the terms of his offshore trust settlement, share exclusive interviews with former financial advisors who say they pleaded with Cage to adopt a more conservative lifestyle. We'll explore how a man who embodied indulgence on screen ended up in a real-world drama where every dollar mattered. And this saga demands notice. They say every empire has cracks, and in Cage's case, those fissures emerged through a series of disastrous financial decisions that no amount of on-screen heroics could mask. Court exhibits unsealed last month reveal that, beginning in 2003, Cage funneled millions into offshore trusts located in Belize and the Cayman Islands, vehicles set up by a Panamanian law firm specializing in asset protection. The stated purpose was estate planning, but the trusts lacked beneficiaries other than numbered shell corporations. When the IRS finally subpoenaed records, agents discovered that some trust accounts received wire transfers labeled property maintenance, yet were used to finance luxury purchases. A 1958 Aston Martin DB4, a six-figure private custom guitar, and multi-year leases on a Japanese superyacht. Those revelations triggered a new round of liens totaling $9.8 million, part of which remains unresolved today. Meanwhile, former financial advisors, once proud collaborators in Cage's rise, now speak of sleepless nights spent warning him about over-leveraged mortgages. One advisor, whose identity remains confidential, claims he presented Cage with a detailed budget projecting a 50% decline in income after 2010. He urged the actor to downsize, sell one or two properties, and redirect funds into conservative index funds. Cage's response, according to the advisor's affidavit, was dismissive. "My art is my royalty," he reportedly said, "and I'm not letting numbers dictate my creativity." That creative bravado, however romantic, sealed his fate. The report shows that between 2006 and 2012, his total liabilities ballooned by 275%, while portfolio diversification dipped below 5%, leaving him dangerously exposed when box office returns faltered. The narrative takes another twist with Cage's purchase of the infamous Cosby Mansion, a 35,000-square-foot estate in Pennsylvania complete with a 14-car garage and private airstrip. Closing costs and property taxes alone exceeded $600,000 per year, yet Cage visited only twice. When his accountant recommended either renting out part of the compound or listing it for sale, Cage allegedly bristled. "It's a piece of America I own," he said. As a result, the mansion became a perennial money pit. Leaks, maintenance emergencies, and skyrocketing insurance premiums drained $2.4 million from his accounts in 5 years. By 2013, creditors moved to foreclose, and Cage's team negotiated a short sale that recouped barely one-third of the original outlay. A deeper look at IRS filing transcripts exposes the scope of misreported income. In 2008, Cage participated in a co-production deal for an art house film financed by European investors. His compensation was structured partly as deferred back-end points contingent on festival circuit success. When the film underperformed and deferred fees evaporated, Cage reported only the guaranteed portion, understating gross revenue by an estimated $4.7 million. The omission triggered an audit, and the resultant penalties and late payment interest added another $1.8 million to his tab. Tax attorneys described the situation as a textbook case of timing mismanagement. Cage deferred income expecting it to accrue value, only to discover that those gains never materialized and the IRS still demanded payment on phantom earnings. While legal battles raged, Cage's filmography shifted toward an unfettered work ethic. Dozens of low-budget thrillers, quick turnaround TV movies, and direct-to-stream releases. Each paycheck helped plug holes, but never plugged enough. Depositions from production accountants in recent trust account trials reveal that Cage frequently waived per diems and travel fees to expedite payments, effectively front-loading his own compensation. One line item reads, "Waived expense recoupment," totaling $750,000 across 6 projects. Cash that could have offset urgent liabilities, but instead funded studio marketing budgets. That selflessness might look generous, but when those projects underperformed, Cage had no cushion left. In the decades-long saga, perhaps the starkest irony lies in how Cage's worst purchases ultimately financed his safety net. Auction houses confirm sales of artifacts once housed in his private vault. A Near Eastern antiquity sold for $2.2 million. A rare samurai sword for $312,000. Those assets, once symbols of triumph, became lifelines. Yet liquidation came at a steep loss. Most items sold at roughly 60% of their purchase value. Legal analysts note that timing these auctions during periods of economic downturn only exacerbated the shortfall, forcing Cage to face the harsh reality that not every treasure holds its worth when you need cash most. By 2015, whispers of a possible Chapter 11 filing grew louder. Cage's attorneys reportedly drafted preliminary schedules outlining more than $20 million in secured debts and $15 million in unsecured obligations. Under Chapter 11, he could reorganize debts while remaining in control. Under Chapter 7, a trustee would liquidate assets to pay creditors. Cage chose neither, instead contracting with a boutique financial firm specializing in unconventional bankruptcy avoidance. The firm negotiated extended payment plans, penalty forgiveness, and even secured a private line of credit against future royalties. But that lifeline came with its own cost. He ceded financial oversight to a court-approved monitor until all obligations were resolved, an agreement that will last through 2026. Despite the turmoil, Cage remained dedicated to his craft. Recent on-camera interviews show him embracing small roles that prioritize character depth over paycheck size. He starred in independent dramas, lent his voice to animation projects, and even taught masterclasses in acting, sharing candid tales of his rise and near fall. Those efforts reflect a determination to redefine success beyond bank balances. Cage has remarked publicly that this chapter reshaped my perspective on what matters. While the phrase may sound rehearsed, the sincerity in his eyes suggests a man who has faced down his own financial mortality and emerged wiser. Though not yet solvent, behind the veneer of defiance, Nicolas Cage's bankruptcy has taken a profound toll on his personal life. Once surrounded by exotic cars, tattered comic books, and sprawling estates, he now grapples with foreclosure notices and garnished royalty checks. Friends close to him describe sleepless nights pacing the living room of a modest rental, haunted by echoes of a past spent in opulence. His teenage son recites bedtime prayers not for monsters under the bed, but for a father free from creditors. Cage's public persona remains fearless and flamboyant, yet off-camera, he hides a fragile anxiety, convinced every voicemail could herald another legal summons. This duality paints a portrait of an artist caught between cinematic legend and everyday vulnerability, struggling to reconcile the man he played with the man he became. Legal entanglements continue to define his days. A court-appointed financial monitor scrutinizes each bank statement, ensuring that every dollar of Cage's future earnings is earmarked for restitution. Recently unsealed records show that last year alone more than 24 production companies submitted claims against his accounts, seeking unpaid loan balances or missed installment payments on co-star agreements. At gala events, he once flaunted rare artifacts. Today, he's restricted from selling anything without court approval. Even his longtime law firm now demands monthly retainers up front as a safeguard, a far cry from the golden retainer he once enjoyed. As one former business partner confided, "We used to joke about his next museum-worthy purchase. Now we whisper about his next court date." That specter of uncertainty hangs over every red carpet glittering premiere. Despite the financial turmoil, Cage has found a wellspring of renewal in independent cinema. These collaborations have reinvigorated his craft and his spirit. He's partnered with visionary, bold, and daring new directors, delivering raw, unfiltered performances in roles that demand vulnerability rather than spectacle. That film secured distribution at Cannes, and its modest box office returns proved sufficient to meet legal obligations and even generate additional royalties. For the first time, Cage's passion for storytelling outpaced his appetite for acquisitions. In interviews, he speaks of these projects as salvations rather than paychecks, emphasizing that authentic artistry can coexist with fiscal responsibility. Reminded of why he first fell in love with acting, he now steps into each part aware that every scene may shape his legacy more than every purchase ever could. Out of adversity, Cage has channeled resources into causes he once overlooked. He pledged a portion of residuals to film preservation societies, ensuring early-era classics remain accessible to cinephiles. At a downtown Los Angeles community center, he hosted free acting workshops for underprivileged teens, sharing candid anecdotes about navigating career highs and devastating lows. These sessions became so popular that overcrowding required organizers to move to a larger venue, where participants receive headshot advice one afternoon and financial literacy guidance the next. Cage's willingness to discuss his fiscal mistakes, his offshore blunders, his misguided purchases, has fostered empathy and action. By lending his name and time, he transforms public fascination with his downfall into a platform for education and hope, proving that even shattered empires can rebuild foundations rooted in generosity. Word of Cage's comeback has spread like wildfire among cinephiles and insiders alike. Rumors swirl that he's in late-stage negotiations for a gritty reboot of a beloved action franchise, one that would reunite him with a filmmaker he collaborated with early in his career. While contract details remain confidential, sources report that Cage has insisted on profit-sharing rather than upfront fees, demonstrating newfound fiscal prudence. Born from lessons, social media buzz is building around #CageReturns, with fan videos editing past performances into hopeful montages set to stirring scores. Production schedules are being drafted with built-in allowances for extended post-production and legal reviews, safeguards he demands to prevent a repeat of past financial disasters. If signed, the film could mark a milestone, resolution to the narrative that once threatened to consume him. Ultimately, Nick Cage's Bankruptcy saga stands as a cautionary epic about fame's double-edged sword. Once portrayed as an unstoppable force on screen, he discovered that unchecked extravagance can unravel even the stoutest reputations. Yet his resilient pivot to indie films, philanthropic outreach, and savvy negotiation tactics offer a blueprint for recovery. Emerging actors watch closely as he transforms a potential downfall into a narrative of redemption, proving that authenticity and accountability can rebuild trust. Audiences, in turn, gain a more nuanced view of celebrity, recognizing that behind every red carpet smile may lie stories of missteps and resilience. As Cage prepares for a surer financial future, he carries with him not just the lessons of lost fortunes, but the currency of hard-earned respect and renewed purpose, and inspires a creative generation. As Cage's financial and creative comeback gathers momentum, a crucial chapter unfolds in the boardrooms where the terms of his next major project were negotiated. Insiders report that, after months of deliberation, Cage and his representatives secured a two-picture deal with a mid-level studio known for giving veteran actors room to experiment. Rather than demanding a seven-figure guarantee, Cage accepted a modest $1.2 million upfront, supplemented by a robust back-end participation clause ensuring he'd share in any box office upside. Crucially, the contract contains a specialized clause permitting him to withhold his services if legal encumbrances threaten his ability to perform promotional duties, an innovation born of bitter past experience. Industry insiders say this legal safeguard could become a template for other talent facing lingering obligations, promoting greater balance between artistic commitment and personal welfare. Behind the scenes, Cage's legal team has guided him through a painstaking process of unshackling any remaining estate planning traps. Working with a boutique firm specializing in trust unwinding, he methodically closed offshore accounts, consolidated assets into domestic trusts governed by transparent fiduciary rules, and incorporated reversion rights that automatically return any unused funds to his direct control after a 5-year period. These moves ensure that future earnings flow more predictably into his personal holdings rather than vanishing into arcane tax shelters. Financial analysts note that these changes cost him in tax advantages he once enjoyed, but that the long-term clarity gained far outweighs short-lived savings, further securing his financial rebirth. On the creative front, Cage surprised many by opting to star in a genre-blending mystery drama rather than a high-octane action sequel. The film, helmed by an acclaimed auteur known for character-driven stories, casts Cage as a reclusive antiques dealer drawn into a web of intrigue surrounding a haunted collection. Production begins this summer in Prague, with a budget that balances production values against careful scheduling to accommodate Cage's ongoing obligations to his financial monitor. By choosing this role, Cage underscores a shift in priorities. His artistic choices now reflect personal affinities and financial prudence rather than blockbuster mandates. Critics speculate that this pivot could redefine his public image once again, from financial cautionary tale to Renaissance thespian. Fans have embraced this new path, flooding social media with messages of support under the hashtag #CageReborn. Exclusive fan events, hosted in conjunction with the studio, offer ticket holders moderated Q&A sessions where Cage discusses the lessons learned from his bankruptcy battle. Attendees receive signed copies of his earlier memoirs alongside financial planning guides donated by his advisors, creating a resource hub that extends beyond the typical fan experience. These events draw not only movie buffs, but also young creatives and aspiring entrepreneurs intrigued by the real-world stakes behind cinematic success. They exemplify how Cage's struggle resonates far beyond the silver screen, providing a living case study in resilience and reinvention. Meanwhile, Hollywood trade journals have begun chronicling Cage's saga as a cautionary tale with broader applications. Top entertainment lawyers now cite his bankruptcy avoidance strategy in seminars on contract law, highlighting the innovative clauses he and his team pioneered. Film schools integrate case studies of his trust restructurings into coursework on entertainment finance, exploring how asset protection can backfire when executed without foresight. Even early draft scripts for student films reference the Cage clause when discussing back-end structures, a sign that his influence extends into the earliest stages of cinematic education. These academic and professional adoptions of his financial blueprint underscore the industry-wide impact of his ordeal. Psychologically, Cage's reinvention relies on a regimen of therapy, mentorship, and introspection. After years of living under the specter of foreclosure and lien notices, he now attends weekly sessions with a psychologist specializing in wealth trauma, a condition affecting high-net-worth individuals coping with dramatic income swings. There, he explores the emotional underpinnings of his spending patterns, decoding how creative ambition and personal insecurities intertwined to fuel his excesses. Additionally, Cage mentors younger actors through a private program where he shares his experiences, cautioning them against shortcuts in fiscal stewardship. Participants say his frankness, melding artistic passion with sober lessons in accountability, makes an indelible impression on a new generation of performers. Philanthropy remains a centerpiece of Cage's restored profile. Building on the film preservation donations he began earlier, he recently launched the Cage Cultural Revival Fund, an endowment supporting restoration of historical art and endangered archives. Funded partly by revenues from his upcoming projects, it bridges his affinity for rare artifacts with a social mission to preserve cultural heritage. Board members include curators from major museums and legacy filmmakers dedicated to preserving early cinema. By transforming personal passion into public good, Cage elevates his narrative from the story of a lone star in financial freefall to one of collective stewardship, reinforcing his redefined purpose. As Section 4 draws to a close, the cumulative threads of Nicolas Cage's bankruptcy saga reveal a pattern of misstep, accountability, and innovative recovery. His next roles, his legal safeguards, his public outreach, and his philanthropic endeavors each illustrate a careful choreography between past lessons and future potential. In the final sections, we'll explore how the first of his newly negotiated films performs at festivals, analyze early box office projections for his upcoming mystery drama, and examine how the entertainment ecosystem itself is reshaping contractual norms in response to Cage's trailblazing. Example: stay tuned for Section 5, where we will follow Cage's footsteps further into a revitalized career that balances art, autonomy, and long-awaited financial stability. At this year's International Film Festival in Cannes, Nicolas Cage stepped onto the red carpet. The premiere of his genre-blending mystery drama, filmed in Prague under the title The Antiquarian Secret, was one of the most anticipated events of the week. Throughout the screening, festival audiences watched impassively as Cage's nuanced performance transformed him from flamboyant risk-taker into a haunted antiques dealer grappling with moral dilemmas and hidden family curses. When the lights rose, spontaneous applause rippled through the auditorium, and critics rushed to record on-the-spot reactions rather than the usual flash banter. Early reviews captured a rare consensus. Critics agreed he delivered his most grounded portrayal in years. Variety's chief film critic declared, Cage's restraint and emotional clarity mark a triumphant late-stage reinvention, while a Paris magazine praised his character's vulnerability as earned, unforced, and deeply affecting. Even veterans who recall anarchic Cage performances found themselves nodding at the subtlety of his gaze and the deliberate pacing of each scene. Social media lit up with clips of quieter, dramatic moments, tagged #CageQuietStorm, shared by cinephiles praising this new chapter in his legacy. Industry analysts noted immediate upticks in pre-sale inquiries from European distributors. Projections by trade data firms now estimate a worldwide haul between $30 and $40 million, a remarkable figure for a modest art house project. Such returns would surpass expectations and trigger back-end clauses that funnel revenues directly to Cage's personal treasury rather than an estate trust. European buyers emphasized Cage's standing ovations in their marketing pitches, noting that festival buzz and spontaneous Q&A applause would drive streaming audiences alike. Financial experts watching this rollout point to technical underpinnings in his new contracts. Unlike typical A-list revenue-sharing deals that disperse percentages among agents, lawyers, and production entities, Cage insisted on a streamlined back-end participation clause capped at 20% gross profits administered directly by his own production company. This structure eliminates layers of administrative fees and reduces exploitation risk by third-party financiers. Contract lawyers at a recent entertainment finance conference held up his deal as an exemplar in clean back-end models, ones that will likely influence how mid-tier stars negotiate deals in the next decade. Back in Los Angeles, the buzz around Cage's on-set philanthropy and financial redemption grew louder as the festival wrapped. Screenings of The Antiquarian's Secret at boutique cinemas were accompanied by panel discussions featuring the directors, Cage himself, and legal experts who dissected the innovative clauses he introduced on screen and off. Attendings were surprised to learn that his co-producers credited Cage for stipulating transparency reviews and real-time profit reporting. Those revelations sparked a debate among aspiring filmmakers in the audience. If an actor can demand such clarity, why shouldn't all creative collaborators? The conversation spilled over to streaming roundtables, where tech executives mulled open dashboards that track budget lines for subscriber communities. Parallel shifts have taken hold in academic circles, too. Film schools in New York and Los Angeles now offer guest lectures on the Cage contract as part of entertainment law syllabi. Students study the ripple effects of his trust unwinding, back-end redistributions, and new moratorium rights on future residuals. More than a legal template, his arrangements serve as cultural case studies on how star power can reshape industry norms. Workshops teach emerging directors to factor transparency clauses up front, while script supervisors work with in-house legal counsel earlier during pre-production to align narrative arcs with contractual obligations. All these developments culminate in a new ecosystem where film financing balances artistic freedom, talent security, and ethical oversight. For fans, the transformation is tangible. When they purchase a ticket, they support not only a compelling performance, but also an industry model that values fairness. When they stream The Antiquarian's Secret online, those viewer numbers directly influence payouts that flow back to Cage's renewed financial health rather than into opaque holding accounts. And when they follow his next project, they witness a star whose past mistakes inform a smarter approach, one that aligns creativity with accountability. In closing, Nicolas Cage's revival at Cannes and the subsequent distribution strategy demonstrate how resilience, thoughtful negotiation, and sincere artistic ambition can coalesce in a singular moment. His journey from Bankruptcy to festival darling shows that legacy isn't defined only by box office peaks or architectural oddities, but by the capacity to learn, adapt, and pioneer better practices. As the credits roll on Section 5 of his remarkable saga, we stand on the precipice of an industry-wide transformation. Next, in Section 6, we will explore the long-term financial projections for The Antiquarian's Secret, how niche platforms respond to his contract model, and whether Cage's next ventures will further cement his status as both a cinematic legend and an architect of fairer film production that in the months since Cannes projections for the antiquarian's secret have continued to climb, surprising even veteran analysts. By mid-year, international distributors confirmed pre-sales that nearly doubled original conservative estimates, forecasting a global haul of $45 million to $55 million by year's end. Streaming platforms have already committed to windowing the film within 90 days of theatrical release, guaranteeing Cage an additional $8 million in licensing fees, money that flows directly into his clean back-end participation account. When you combine box office performance, festival accolades, and streaming revenue, the net yield positions Cage to clear remaining obligations and rebuild reserves, all without sacrificing ownership of future residuals. Niche platforms have been particularly enthusiastic about Cage's contract model. Criterion Channel announced an exclusive 4-week run, leveraging the film's art house sensibility to attract cinephiles interested in his Renaissance period. Mubi snapped up regional rights for curated programming, marketing the movie alongside classic noir and European puzzle thrillers in their July spotlight. Even smaller services like Shudder experimented with themed, forbidden antiquities marathons, bundling Cage's thriller with commentary tracks that unpack his legal innovations. These partnerships not only amplify his creative voice, but also serve as case studies in transparent revenue sharing. Every dollar earned triggers real-time reporting visible to public subscribers and Cage's financial monitor. Studios outside Hollywood have taken notice, too. In Canada, Telefilm Canada used the transparency clauses crafted for Cage as benchmarks when drafting funding requirements for its new Indigenous Voices initiative. In Europe, Film Fund Luxembourg incorporated similar back-end safeguards into co-production pacts, ensuring that local talent and artisans share profits equitably. Japanese animation studios drafting contracts for veteran voice actors reference the Cage clause as a best practice, explicitly limiting administrative fees and mandating quarterly payment schedules. Across continents, an echo chamber of reform has formed, propelled by one actor's insistence on fairness and accountability. Back on set, Cage's reputation has evolved. Directors now approach him not only for his emotive prowess, but also for his willingness to negotiate production terms that safeguard crew health and financial transparency. Whispered talks for his next feature, a submerged thriller tentatively titled Blue Depths, already include discussions on live streaming behind-the-scenes financial dashboards. Producers plan to share anonymized budget breakdowns online so that fans and stakeholders can track expenditure on set design, special effects, and cast wages alike. This level of openness would have been unthinkable 10 years ago, yet in Cage's post-bankruptcy world, it's a selling point rather than a liability. Meanwhile, Cage's venture into production has accelerated. His boutique company, Renaissance Pack Productions, recently secured a first-look deal with a major streaming service, greenlighting 3 films over the next 2 years. Each agreement contains his trademark back-end participation, reversion rights after a 5-year window, and clauses requiring an annual transparency report. Under Renaissance Pack's banner, Cage is developing a supernatural anthology series that interweaves global folklore, stories that echo his own journey of confronting and reclaiming lost legacies. By producing under these fair-minded terms, he not only tells compelling stories, but also sets new standards for what it means to share both artistic credit and financial equity. Philanthropic ventures have also expanded, with Cage's Cultural Revival Fund announcing its first major grant cycle. Applicants include archival restoration teams in South America, digital preservation projects in Southeast Asia, and oral history collectives in Eastern Europe. Each grant carries a stipulation that beneficiaries provide audited progress reports and financial statements in open access repositories. That requirement mirrors Cage's own commitment to transparency. No longer content to quietly fund projects, he expects grantees to uphold the same ethical standards he fought so hard to establish. In doing so, his philanthropic mission dovetails with his artistic reinvention, forging a legacy built on openness and respect for cultural heritage. Looking ahead, Cage's next high-profile collaboration may break new ground in cross-media contracting. Rumor has it he's in talks to co-create an interactive graphic novel adaptation, where revenues from digital comic sales and companion podcasts feed directly into a smart contract blockchain ledger. Fans could buy tokens that trigger real-time royalty distribution each time a new issue downloads, ensuring creators and contributors receive immediate compensation. If realized, this project would cement Cage's role not only as a pioneering actor, but also as an architect of next-generation entertainment finance. Amid these professional pivots, Cage remains acutely aware of the personal lessons learned. In interviews, he emphasizes that his financial resurrection serves as an enduring reminder. Creative freedom and fiscal responsibility need not be opposing forces. He speaks candidly about sleepless nights and the guilt of misplaced confidence, using those experiences to guide new collaborations. Actors, directors, and financiers end calls now by asking, "What would Cage do?" A shorthand that encapsulates both bold artistry and contractual vigilance. As 2024 draws to a close, the full arc of Cage's comeback is still unfolding. Will Blue Depths deliver on streaming's promise of interactive transparency? Can Renaissance Pack's anthology attract global viewership while honoring regional storytellers? Will the blockchain graphic novel reshape how comics reward creators? Each question reflects a larger truth. Adaptability and integrity fuel sustainable success. Nicolas Cage's journey from bankruptcy to industry trailblazer proves that legacy hinges not on extravagant acquisitions, but on the courage to rebuild a fair, transparent, and artistically vibrant future, one contract clause at a time.